this edition of Navigate. Today we have with us Camille Fournet with FBT Avocats in beautiful Paris, France. We really appreciate you joining us today, Camille.
Thank you very much, James, for inviting me.
Yeah, so I think our listeners are in for quite a treat today, as we're gonna talk about a couple different topics. Just to set the stage a little bit, we want Camille to tell everyone about himself, about his firm, and then we're gonna talk about some recent events in the French political landscape, and then we're gonna focus in on a topic that Camille and I have had the opportunity to work together on, and that is Americans going to France and purchasing real estate for a vacation home or to move there permanently. So, with that said, Camille, do you mind sharing your everything we want to know? Well, maybe not everything, but what we might want to find interesting about Camille and of course about FBT.
All right, so I'm basically working for a FBT since 2012 to 2020. We are a French-Swiss law firm, which has always originally been established in Switzerland. We have an office in Geneva, where the team is much larger than in Paris, where I'm based, and their practice is more multidisciplinary. Here in Paris, we focuses almost exclusively on tax law matters for individuals. So even though corporate tax matters are always present, our core activity is assisting individuals with their tax matters. And I'm working as a senior tax manager. So I'm providing advice and assistance for litigation to our clients on tax law issues exclusively, and for individuals that are that have some international consideration, mostly international considerations.
Perfect. Perfect. So do you work a lot with American citizens coming over to France, Canadians, British?
Absolutely, yes. Some Americans with specific, of course, consideration related to their citizenships. Canadians, Britons, most countries in the EU, and everything that comes, actually. Every country is welcome.
Well, we'll get into what parts of the country you see people settling in, et cetera, et cetera. But as we are part of a global community, we hear of both cultural and political business matters happening in countries all over the world. Maybe it's just that we're in that season because we are in the middle of it in the United States with our elections happening on November 5th. I understand that France has had some items that have taken place that our viewers may find interesting. You mind sharing what you've seen?
Yeah, yes. Maybe some of the U.S. Citizens have read in the papers that the current political situation in France is quite tricky, actually. Since actually it is like this since mid-June, because after some European elections where the far-right parties have gained a decent majority from the French electors, the French President of the Republic, Emmanuel Macron, has decided to dissolve the National Assembly. And this dissolution leads to early legislative elections. And what we have seen is that in order to avoid the far right to secure too many seats, the left-wing parties have united together and presented themselves. After this election, what we can see is that the National Assembly is pretty much divided into three sets, three mainly equal sets. So we have first the left-wing union, which has gained more or less 30% of the National Assembly. Then we have the centrist party, which is the presidential party, gaining 163 seats, a little less than 30%, but we are in the same ranks. And then we have the far right parties, which has 143 seats, which is pretty much historical and giving them a little less than 25%. So we have this this landscape, this political landscape, which is very, very partialized, and we have for the moment a status quo that is maintained. Normally, the French tax president, I don't know where I'm going with it, the president has to appoint a prime minister within the National Assembly majority. It is not written anywhere. It is a custom. The problem is that we have no clear majority for the moment. So even though some parties are claiming that they have a majority, we have no majority for the moment. And I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, the president clearly told that he would not designate any prime minister prior to the end of the Olympic Games. So we have until early September to remain in this kind of confusion, and it is quite tricky because all the parties that have presented themselves, they came with a very detailed, for some of them, tax program, for example, and we are today in a pretty big confusion in order to know what's going to happen in the near future.
So does that mean that it's in a state of perpetual standstill until such point in time that the parties can come together, the president can appoint a prime minister, government is established, and it can move forward? Is that basically where we're at in France?
Absolutely, at least for the moment, because so France is a civil law country, so pretty much every rules comes from written law. So the written law is enacted by the parliament, composed by both the National Assembly, which has been dissolved, and the Senate. What we see nowadays is that all these laws, they are not written by the parliament, but proposed by the government, and making the National Assembly and the Senate pretty much a registry chamber. But for the moment, the government is not doing anything. We remain with the current government, which needs to be renewed, and it will only be renewed after the Olympics. So for the moment, nothing will be proposed to the parliament, and I don't know if the parliament, with these three majorities, not majorities, can actually agree on something, because they are very different from one another. As I said before, we have a left-wing union going from pretty moderate parties, such as, let's say, the Socialist Party, which is left-wing, but not as radical as, let's say, the Communist Party, or what they call the France Insoumise, which are very far left parties. So with this big disparity, I don't know if they can agree on something. So we don't know what's going to happen, especially on tax matters for the moment.
Perfect. Well, you mentioned something. You mentioned something that has the world's attention, and that is Paris is hosting the Olympic Games. So, what is it like being in Paris with the Olympic Games going on?
It is pretty difficult, actually, because
Okay.
much of the city needs to be secured. Of course, this is a big event. There are I think much of all countries, presidents, royalties, and everything, celebrities, big athletes. So it needs to be secure. But if you live in Paris, that's clearly a pain somewhere, for sure. So and it will hopefully decrease as from tomorrow night. So today we are Thursday and tomorrow is the opening day. So hopefully after tomorrow it will be much smoother to circulate in town.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be crowded, and it's going to be loud, and a lot of excitement because these world-class athletes are coming there to compete, and it's if you stop and you think about it, it's quite an honor to be able to host it. So it's great that Paris is getting that opportunity.
It is, and most of the games, I think, are going to be settled in town, not much into stadium where they can. They have set up things in town, so this is why we have big secured area in towns. But it is also a very great landscape for. I think the volleyball field is just not beneath the Tour Eiffel, but not too far. So what a great place to play volley.
Well, if nothing else, it's going to give a lot of audiences, in particular American audiences, since we're sitting here in the US, exposure, even more exposure to the beauty that is France. And maybe it'll result in a lot of Americans wanting to come over and buy real estate and provide opportunities for you to help them. So
Hopefully, yeah.
we're hoping, right? We're hoping. Well, one of the things we wanted to touch base on. I'm going to set the stage here, and then Camille, I'd like you to go through the process of how you advise clients regarding the topic of acquiring real estate. So what ended up happening is how you and I came acquainted with, and our firms working together is the situation of an American couple, two architects, who decided they were going to make an acquisition of real estate in France. I think it was in the southwest part of the country. They decided that they wanted to have a place that was in a smaller town where they could be more ingrained into the culture. The wife in particular was very, very excited about French cooking and French design and everything else. So it was just and the husband, who spoke a little bit of French, was very, very excited about the opportunity as well. So I was approached by them to help them figure out what was the best way to acquire this property in France. And while we went through some of the US side of how you might want to own the property, when it came to actually how do we do this in France, I turned to my friend Camille here, and he was instrumental in helping them get this. So just to tell you the end of the story before he tells you how he got them there, on Christmas Day, this in 2023, I got a note from them saying, Jim, we just wanted to let you know that we spent our first Christmas Eve in our new home in France, and we are most appreciative of Camille and your effort in making our dream come true. So why don't you tell us, Camille, how did you make their dream come true?
I'm glad I could have helped, and thank you for the opportunity also.
No problem.
What we can help actually working together for these Americans looking to buy real estate in France. Actually, so first, I'm not selling any real estate, so I did not sell anything to them personally. So they made it themselves. But maybe first, I think that aside from the pure expatriation, this acquiring real estate is generally the first steps that involves French tax implications for Americans. So first, they went on vacation, as you said, sometimes, and they've been seduced by. I can't remember actually the name of the village they bought their real estate into, but it is on the southwest of France where you have actually many Britons and many Americans that established themselves, either just for vacations or for retirement. This is a lovely place. This is a lovely place. You have some old villages and many, let's say, old real estate, sometimes ruins, but these are amazing projects to renovate and amazing projects to spend the rest of your life, actually. People there are amazingly gentle, nice, and everything. And for English-speaking people, this is a great place because you have many Britons, many US people. So it's a great place to establish. So maybe first to focus more on the tax and financial part of this. Once they have determined where they want to buy, either in a city or in a small village, you have to go through a notary in France to buy this. It's not exactly an attorney at law, but it is a legal counsel when you want to acquire some real estate. So you go through the notary and you encounter, apart from the price of your purchase, you encounter your first French taxes. Stamp duties. Stamp duties. You pay this upon your purchase. It's an aggregation of many rates, but you can state them around 8.5% of the actual value of the asset. So the less you pay for it, the less taxes you are going to pay. And in the light of the current political situation, this has not been proposed to be changed by any party for the moment. Mainly because these are some local taxes, so regional taxes and everything, not national taxes. So this might be why they have not made any proposal on this. What can be an issue at some point is that either if you are purchasing a big apartment in Paris or a big house or a farm, you are renovating in a village, there might come a point where the value of your real estate will increase drastically, and the value of your house might put you into the wealth tax in France, even if you are not residing in France. If the value of your real estate located in France exceeds 1.3 million euros, you fall into the French wealth tax. And this is clearly a point which has been considered during the proposal for the elections, the last elections, because the current president of the Republic, Emmanuel Macron, when he came to government, he has limited the wealth tax only to real estate. Before that, it was on everything in your assets, either a house, cars, portfolio stocks, your jewels, the furniture in your house, everything. It was your taxable assets. As from Macron, he has decided that wealth tax would only be limited to real estate in order to encourage investments. And during this campaign, these political campaigns, of course, the union of the left parties and even the far right, they have clearly stated their intent to rectify this wealth tax in order for the left parties to reinstate it as it was before, and even increase some things for environmental purpose. And the far right, I think, but it was actually the program was not very clear on this point. but they were looking into changing the wealth tax in the other way. So you exclude the real estate and only put the stocks, cash, movable assets. So basically, owning real estate in France for a significant value, we are talking about 1.3 million euros. So it starts to be a decent real estate. If you only have one real estate in France and it exceeds 1.3 million, that's pretty good. This is, for example, a problem that I do not have for the moment. Hopefully one day. So we will see in the near future where we are going with this wealth tax. But for the moment, we don't know. But if something needs to be done with regard to the wealth tax, it needs to be done before January 1st of a year. Wealth tax is something that you assess on January 1st of a taxable year. So basically, if you sell your real estate on up to December 31st, then you do not enter the taxation for the following year. So we will see. This is not something we can say for other types of income, for example, where you have a retroactivity of the law sometimes. So, but for wealth tax, some operations can be made if necessary.
So in this particular case, with the Americans, the value of the property, I believe it was under €500,000.
Yeah, something around there. Yeah, something around there. And then I think it was the acquisition price or the purchase price of their real estate was around €500,000. And after that, they have made some significant works on this in order to renovate it, put it to modern standards, and hopefully this will increase the market value of their real estate. So in this situation, something else that can be considered is the capital gain that you can expect if you want to sell your property at a time or another. And purchasing something at 500 grand and selling it at 2 million, it clearly creates a massive capital gain. So as it is related to a real estate located in France, even though our couple of Americans are not for the moment residing in France, most likely still US tax residents, so taxable in the US on their worldwide income. This, being a real estate located in France, makes them taxable on the income that is generated by this real estate in France. So if they sell it, if they rent it, it will be taxable in France. And the high capital gain they can expect will be taxable in France. Of course, we have some rebates applicable regarding the holding period. For example, you can expect a full exemption after a 30-year holding period, and you can also deduct some of the works you have made, but it is pretty limited. So we have to be very careful when analyzing what can be deducted or not. In the light of what has been said during this political campaign regarding real estate sale, nothing has been clearly stated for the moment. Even though it is income tax related, it is very very specific. Real estate sale is usually we use a progressive tax rate bracket in France for income tax, but for real estate sale, we use a flat rate of 90%. On top of that, you have 17.2% of social taxes. These are basically the two mandatory contribution you can expect in France. Income tax, taxes in general, and social security as well. And nothing has been clearly stated for real estate sale for the moment. So We will see.
So this couple, they just acquired this property for personal use. What happens? I'm sure there are Americans that purchase property that whether it be a chateau or some other dwelling, they want to refurbish it and then bring it up to modern standards, restore it back to its former glory to some degree, and then turn around and put it in a rental market. What happens when that's the case, that it becomes rental property?
If they want to rent it, which is pretty much the second step of the situation of our American couple. Usually, you buy your French real estate, and then it comes to your mind that you are only in France for 2 months a year. If you are lucky enough as an American to take 2 month vacation at any point during a year, so you are left with an emptied house, chateau, anything during the year, and you have furnished it. You want to share sometimes what you have done, and renting it is clearly a solution. So the income that you can earn from the rental of your real estate in France, exactly like for the capital gains, it's a French source income. So even though you are not a French tax resident, strictly a French tax resident, it is taxed. It is taxable, at least in France. So you can expect your rental income to be taxed. For non-residents, we have the progressive tax rate, but you can mainly have two brackets, a 20% and a 30% bracket of income tax, plus 17.2% of social security, which is pretty high, but you can deduct, of course, the expense of you have made during the year. So the management, if you are in the US, you are not going to move back and forth between France and the US to rent it. You are probably going to leave it to a local company to rent it for you, which costs fees, repairs cost fees, and everything of that can be, of course, deducted. And if it is rented, you can also use this as a means to reduce your taxable basis on other taxes, such as wealth tax. You are taxed on wealth tax on the market value of your real estate. So if it is rented, it is not the same price as you would expect a real estate, as you would expect to buy a real estate free of any tenant. So you can use all these facts to match the reality actually. So for income tax, and this leads me to enlighten with the current political situation, because we have some pretty big proposals that have been made by some parties regarding income tax. For the moment, in France, it's for tax residents, but it can, in a sense, if you earn significant amounts of income as a non-resident taxpayer, as a US tax resident, for example, you can fall into the progressive tax rates applicable for French resident taxpayers, which is, for the moment, a progressive tax rate from 0 to 45%. You are reaching the 45% bracket as from 177,000 euros in taxable income. The left-wing union, which has presented a program which was more or less the same program the Jean-Luc Mélenchon from the France Insoumise, which is a far left-wing party, used during the past presidential election. They have proposed the 14 bracket tax rate scale from 1% to 90%. 90, not 90%. And you reach the higher bracket at 411,000 euros, which you can reach. It's not for everybody, of course. We are talking about nearly 500,000 euros, but of taxable income. So once you have deducted every expenses, but if you have a year with a significant amount of income because you have made something pretty exceptional, you can easily reach these brackets in some situations. And these are not taking into consideration the second level of mandatory contribution, which is the social taxes at 17.2%. And if your math has already started, you can see that if it's 90% of income tax plus 17.2% of social security, we are 107.2% of an income. So, well, this is, well, I think it is a political proposal. So we will leave it like this as it is. And we have already encountered such situation before. In 2012, we already have a changeover in the political landscape in France when François Hollande was elected as the president of the Republic. He was from a left-wing party, moderate left-wing party, but he had a similar proposal. It was, I think, I believe, 75% of income tax bracket at 75%. You reached at I can't remember the amount of income tax, the amount of taxable income, and clearly it was rejected by the Constitutional Court of France, saying it was too confiscatory to be settled. So I think if this 14 bracket scale comes into proposal with a higher bracket at 90%, there is a strong possibility that it will be rejected by the Constitutional Court. But this is a pretty interesting fact on the proposal that has been made.
So there would be tax, obviously, if an American buys property, puts it in a bed and breakfast, whatever it might be, if it's generating rental income, there will be French tax, and they'll end up having to report the same income on their U.S. return, and likewise take a foreign tax credit for the French income tax paid.
Of course, but this is your side. This is your side of the work.
Yeah.
And,
so what are the typical ways it's held? They just hold it personally? Do they hold it through trust? I mean, how is real estate commonly held in France?
Well, actually, exactly like you said, it depends on what you are doing with your real estate. Just holding it like this for yourself, I don't think there is any use to incorporate a company or put it anywhere in a French company or whatsoever. It will only be a mess to make sure you are you are meeting your declaration, your returns correctly. It will be a mess. So if you are not renting it, direct holding is the best situation. If you start to rent it, especially if it's rented, because we have two regimes of taxation, either the real estate is rented or furnished or not furnished. If it's not furnished, basically you are taxed at the regime which is called rental income, and if it's furnished, it's considered as a business income. Nearly the same rules apply. To simplify, nearly the same rules apply, but if you are under the business income regime, you can deduct more. You can deduct the price of your furniture. And if you have incorporated it before, you can deduct a part of the price upon several years. So if you start to rent it, there might be some interest into incorporating something, most likely in France. And clearly, and you have mentioned this, and this is pretty interesting because this is something that we are meeting with our US client pretty often, and which is pretty difficult to consider in France, is the trust. we see that it is commonly used by Americans and Britons to manage and transmit their assets. The problem is that this trust does not align with the principles that are applicable in France, in a civil law country. We have an ancestral principle regarding property rights, and clearly fiduciary relationships like this, they do not fit into there. So either way, the French legislator had no other choice than to consider the trust in a way or another. So he has drafted some provision in the French law, but it is clearly limited, and it is clearly limited to the use of trust for fraud purpose, actually. So there are, of course, safeguard provisions, but if you have, of course, set up your trust relationship to transmit it to your children, of course, the French judge, if he has your file in his hands, he will, of course, understand that it is only for inheritance purpose, but there are many compliance to be made if you have a trust, and many sanctions applicable if you do not meet them, even if you do not avoid any French taxes. Just having a trust and having an interest in France inside the trust makes some obligations regarding returns. For example, if you are either a settler or a trustee or a beneficiary of a trust, and if one of these are tax residents in France, you have to report it to the French tax authorities. If none of these people are tax residents in France, but if there is a real estate located in France inside this trust relationship, you have to disclose it to the French tax authorities. If you do not meet this obligation, there is a penalty of 20,000 euros per return you have avoided. So basically, you have at least one return a year to file. It increased pretty fast, and but so we do not recommend to put it in a trust. But if it is, well, fair enough. This is a way that is used by Americans to transmit their assets to their children, or even not children, other charities or everything like this. So if it's stated like this, there are safeguard provisions that say if it's not intended to make any abuse, then we leave it like this. But there are still returns filing obligations. And
okay, so there is let's touch base on one last aspect before we finish our time today, and that is the disposition of real estate, whether it be from a sale, a gift, or inheritance. It's something that is inherited. Do you mind sharing what your experience has been with the taxation around those items?
Of course. Well, I think maybe to continue the metaphor, it's the last step actually of owning your real estate in France. You are transmitting it to your children, either if you are still alive and you are making a gift, or it can happen if you die, and it is transmitted to your children that way. Well, French taxes will apply, even if none of the donor or the donee parents and children, for example, are tax residents in France, French taxes will apply still because the real estate is located in France. This is the main thing. So gifts and inheritance in France are, in terms of taxes, are the same. You use the same rules. Territoriality, as I said, makes you taxable in France if you have French located assets. The tax basis is pretty much the same as you can find it on the wealth tax. So it's the market value at the time, either of the donation or the death date, the day of death, sorry. Um, there are, of course, ways to reduce the taxable basis depending on the previous donation that may have been made to your children. And then the rates that can be applied are depending on the relationship you have between the donor and the donee. If it is between parents and children, you have the most favorable tax rates applicable, which are going from 5% to 45%. And this 45% bracket is applying us from 1.8 million euros of inheritance asset. Then for more distant relationship, you have an increase in the rates or less lower rates. Let's say for siblings, there are only two rates applicable, 35% and 45%, but you reach the 45% at 24,000 euros. So it is reached pretty much easily. And for more distant relationship, let's say if you want to donate something to someone that is not into your family, it's 65%. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
So this regime is not particularly favorable. And still to continue with our current political situation, and we don't know what is going to happen. The proposal of some of the left-wing union were to increase the progressivity of these inheritance taxes and even to cap the amount of assets you can actually transmit. They want to cap it, and I found it earlier today. I think it's 12 million. So you will not be able to give more than 12 million value of assets. Again, it's something pretty high, but it can happen. It can happen. So we will see if it can be applied or not. Once again, I'm taking examples regarding the current political situation, but once again, it's too confused to be sure of anything. And these are heavy proposals. So we will see, even if they are proposed and enacted, if the Constitutional Court do not reject them. We will see.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, as we learned in the case that we worked on. You have to think about this on both sides, right? You have to consider all of the French ownership and tax ramifications, and then look at it from the American side as well to come up with an answer that gives you the most effective means of ownership at the least amount of tax costs. So I think, is there 3 or 4 things that you would like to leave our audience with to say, these are the top 3 to 5 things you need to think about when buying real estate in France?
I think, and because as everything we are doing also on the American side, I'm sure, is that everything needs to be analyzed precisely in order to make sure of everything that. So maybe one point that is very important from a French side perspective for US citizens is to make sure when they establish their French tax residency. This is the main problem we see every time. So, and especially with Americans, because the US citizenship, if my understanding is correct, makes you taxable in the US, even if you are not a US tax resident. Am I correct?
That's correct.
So,
Worldwide.
so yeah, worldwide, on your worldwide income. So basically, we see many Americans coming and thinking that they do not have any compliance to do in France, no taxes to pay in France, because they are already taxed on everything in the US. But clearly, it does not work like this. Of course, uh, on some income, it works like this. Let's say dividends, capital gains,
Sure.
insurance, if they are from US source and you are French tax residents, in principle, you are taxable on this. This is part of your worldwide income, so
Correct.
taxable in France.
Tax treated.
But uh, you claim for a tax credit in France for this, and you cannot do this for I don't know any other country with which you can do this. But for other income, it works like for everybody. You are in France, you report your worldwide income, and some of them are taxable, finally taxed in France. So the main point and the most important point is to make sure that your residency, your tax residency, where it is. And of course, there are implications with the US. We work together in order to make sure that the actual application of the tax treaty, because we have the French rights on one side, we have the American rights on the other side. And if this enters into conflict, we have a tax treaty that can be applied to make sure that we have no double taxation, no double tax residency, to make sure everything goes smoothly.
Yeah, I think we'll finish up with this today, Camille, is in working with you, you were very, very willing to share a little bit of time, a little bit of your knowledge to get somebody started. How would someone get in contact with you if they're thinking about buying real estate and they want to have that type of discussion with you? How do they get a hold of you?
Well, by mail, by phone, you can go to, I think, our website, FBT Avocat. You type it on Google, there is.
Yeah, we'll have it on our website. But they can, the point is they can reach out to you directly and you'll be more than happy to
I will.
make an
I will.
inquiry and see how you could help them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time today. And as we like to say, vive la France.
Thank you, James, and thank you for the opportunity. Very
My
much.
pleasure. Until next time, this is Jim Dawson signing off. Thank you.